President Obama wrapping up a meeting with leaders in Congress not too long ago. The topic, well, not surprisingly, Iraq. The purpose, maybe not what you think. We've asked someone very special to come along here to interpret this from a different perspective. You see, Erik is a psychologist, and the reason we called him today is to explain how these debriefings work, that they're more consultations, and at least initially meant to keep critics at bay. What's the psychological effect, Doctor? What happens?
Well, I think what we have to look at the idea here is that the president may feel like he invited people into his house to help him make decisions on matters that were both national, international, and then after they left, he might have felt beat up by them. So over time, I think he has felt like he hasn't been able to trust the bipartisan decision-making process, and in his last 2 years, he basically has to create his legacy. So I think at this point, he's decided, I'm going to make these decisions, and I'm going to bring people in to let people know what my decisions are, and we can discuss them. However, I want to be the one in charge, the person in charge of making those decisions at this time.
All right, when it comes to military matters, that is normally the president's purview. Many of his critics argue he goes too far without consulting them. But one thing I've noticed, Doctor, you can help me with this, after such debriefings, and I noticed this with President Bush during the Iraq War, the early days of the Iraq War, such debriefings have a brief window of unity. In other words, people don't come out of the meeting right away and rip the president, be Republican or Democrat. They might in time, but it gives him a brief window of quasi-peace. What do you think of that?
Right. Well, I think right now there's been an erosion of trust between our executive branch, our legislative branch, as well as in Main Street, too. There's not a lot of trust going around, and political parties, the goal is that they appear to be our rescuer, our savior. They have to be the one with the answers. They have to be the one to guide us to the light, to our security, to our comfort. And so what we have to look at is what are the political wranglings behind wanting to be seen as buying into somebody that we don't trust, or that we feel afraid of, or that we don't want to trust because we want to be the one seen as good and strong and right. So there's a lot of issues with it being the midterm elections and what people are doing to try to wrangle to make sure their party stays in power or claims power, and how that plays out and how things are going to be communicated after these briefings.
But Republicans have to be careful, too, because there's always the notion, in a time of war, potential war, he's the commander-in-chief, and whether you like him or not, don't look too disruptive or too protesting. So how do they play this? How do they react to this without seeming like they're not patriotic?
It's a very tough line that I think has been crossed in the past, and that's one of the things that we've seen, and I think that's where some people have lost faith in both parties, is that they haven't been able to work together. But especially at a time like this, when decisions are being made on Iraq, that if things go well, again, the president looks like he made the right decision. Right. If it doesn't go well, then we'll have to wait to see what people on the Republican side say about his decisions and actions. I think the difficulty is because he hasn't been seen as having somebody who's been in the intelligence sector or the defense sector, that he really understands all the pieces, even though he has his advisors helping him make those decisions that are very important to all of us.
Very good point, Doctor. Thank you very, very much. And to the doctor's point, one thing we're going to watch for after they come out of these meetings or those press conferences, where initially, I'm telling you, it's almost always the case, they're very supportive, respectful, and 24 hours, they're going for the jugular. It never fails.